What's up, everybody? My name is Michael, and this is a super episode of Hearthstone, and we are going to do a two deck text. I got two decks I want to show you guys. One of them sort of serious, and the other definitely not so serious. The first one I'll show you is a Druid deck. The second one is a Priest deck, and I'll also have just a small booster pack opening at the end of the video, just because, you know, why not? It's my very first payday tomorrow at my new job. My very first paycheck from there, so I just decided, you know, let's buy some packs. And I haven't bought Goblin versus Gnome packs before. I've actually just been buying classic packs since I didn't really have any cards. So wanted to try and get some of those Goblins versus Gnomes cards, and so I decided to purchase some of those. So we'll do that at the end of the video. First off, we'll start with the serious deck. This deck is actually, I want to take on the ladder and play around with it. It has some pretty good matchups. I found, for example, Oil Rogue is actually a pretty good matchup for this deck. It plays big enough threats that they have to deal with them, but with Oil Rogue, the way, you know, you're trying to get the most value out of your cards, and if you're spending multiple cards on one card, it's not really that good value. For example, a Blade Flurry on one minion isn't very good value. But in our deck, because we have something like Druid of the Fang, well, it's a big threat that they have to deal with. And, you know, not every list runs Big Game Hunter, and they only have one Big Game Hunter in their list, if they have one at all. So it's, you know, this kind of deck, especially with cards like King Mukla as well, you know, they don't play a lot of minions, so they don't get as much use out of those two bananas a lot of the time. And also, it's just a really early threat that you have to deal with, and that generally costs them a preparation into like a preparation, Blade Flurry, stuff like that. And you know, if anything, they have to hit the minions to get more use out of their weapon for removal. So it's better for us because this is a beatdown deck. I wanted to make a deck that didn't have the Savage Roar Force of Nature combo, because every Druid deck runs that, other than Fatigue Druid, which is actually a deck I want to make. I want to make my own list of a Fatigue Druid, because I think, you know, with cards like Naturalize, it's just really effective at milling. So it's sort of the go-to for milling, I know, but I sort of want to see if I can take it someplace else. I also want to try out maybe a Malygos Druid, because I have Malygos, and like I saw Moonfire, and I was like, damn, 0 mana, deal 7 damage, I think it is, with Malygos. I think Malygos is like plus 6 spell damage, or plus 5, but a lot of damage regardless. But anyways, onto this list. So I wanted to make a Druid of the Fang list, and because I saw Druid of the Fang, and I was like, damn, with the ramp alongside Druid, and even just playing it as a natural Ankur 5 mana, you can get a 7/7, which is really good. And it's sort of a big middle finger to Big Game Hunter, because I know, you know, people don't really play these types of cards because of Big Game Hunter sometimes. It does require other cards to be useful, and, you know, they could just have Big Game Hunter, but lists only run one Big Game Hunter, and, you know, one card out of 30, you know, they're going to have it in their hand, and if not, it's getting hit for 7, which, you know, a Druid of the Fang only needs to hit your opponent 4 times to win, and alongside our other minions, we're going to be doing more damage to them, and so we can really close out games once we sort of build just a small board state of just like one Druid of the Fang and one Druid of the Claw, or even a Druid of the Fang and a Power of the Wild Panther. It's like you can close out games very quickly. And so I wanted to make a deck that had sort of a ramp element to it, because Wild Growth and Innervate, like, we're trying to just get our big creatures out and just hit our opponent's face. You know, Druid doesn't have the best board clear, doesn't have the best board control, and we're not really, you know, generally, because Druid's playing the bigger creatures on the field most of the time, you're going to be using your creatures to control the board. And with this deck, we really only want to control the board when we have to. If we don't have to, we can easily race our opponent. And so that is why we have lots of big minions at the end, or bigger minions, and we're just trying to beat our opponent down, because, you know, when it comes down to it, getting hit for 7 damage is a lot of damage, and so we really only hit them a couple of times, and then we have like Druid of the Claws with charge to finish them off, or even swipes frequently finish off my opponent as well. And there's some interesting choices in this list that you don't normally find in Druid lists, which I'll go over now. So, going down the list, Innervate and Wild Growth are just staple in ramp. Can't get around it. It's just, you know, it's so awesome, and with one of our cards in Innervate, I'll get to in a second, is some a pretty cool turn 1 play you can actually do with this deck. Power the Wild, we needed 2 beasts. You know, it can be 2 beasts if we want to, because those Panthers count as beasts for Druid of the Fang. So even later on in the game, even if we don't have the board state, we can Power the Wild plus Druid of the Fang on turn 7, or even earlier if we have ramp, and make a 7/7 and create a very big board state. If anything, we also can just, if we have other minions on board, like our smaller minions, we can just Power the Wild to give them +1/+1. Like after playing Scenarios, this is actually pretty good for playing Power the Wild, and making those 2/2 taunt treants 3/3 taunts, and making Scenarios a 6/9. Out of range of Big Game Hunter, but still a really huge threat. So it's a very good late game play there. Wraths are sort of a staple alongside Swipe in terms of removal. And to supplement that, we don't really have great board control in Druid. You know, they're definitely not the masters of AoE and stuff like that. So that's why we have Wild Pyromancer. So Wild Pyromancer essentially makes our Wraths and our Swipes better, and those really are the only spells that we have. Like sometimes we'll be able to, you know, Wild Pyromancer and then Nourish to, you know, kill off some Paladin tokens or something like that. But generally, we are trying to combo Wild Pyromancer with Swipe to turn it into deal 5 damage to an enemy and 2 damage to all other enemies, or Wrath deal 4 damage to an enemy, or draw or deal 2 damage and draw a card. Yes, you're hurting your own minions with Wild Pyromancer, but it also is a threat on its own, just a 3/2 body that we can hit with if we need to, and also our minions are just big enough and sticky enough that we don't really care about the 1 damage to our own minions. Ironbeak Owl, you'll notice I have 2. So I initially had 1, but then I noticed, wait, it's a beast. So I decided to have 2. Another reason for that is because we really don't have any other ways other than the Black Knight to get rid of taunts. And we want our damage to be going to the face. We don't want to be controlling the board as much as we can. So if we find ourselves facing a taunt creature, like you know, there's tons of people that play Sludge Belchers. It's one of the most played taunts in the game. And Ironbeak Owl just shuts that down completely. Shuts off the death rattle, shuts off the taunt, and just lets us hit our opponent in the face for 7. Because they also play it on a turn if we're, you know, just playing turn per turn without our ramp. Druid of the Fang comes down the same turn that Sludge Belcher does. So following that up with, you know, playing a Druid of the Fang, they'll be threatened by it, put out a Sludge Belcher, we'll play Ironbeak Owl, silence it, and then hit them in the face for 7. And then the race is on from there, and we can finish them off in a few turns after that. So Ironbeak Owl is great, you know, not only just as a beast to count towards Druid of the Fang, but just because there's so many things to silence in this game that I think it's fine to warrant 2 of, at least in this deck, because of the Druid of the Fang. Big Game Hunter is just sort of a staple in, like, so many decks now. It sort of sucks. I don't really want to play it. Like, honestly, if I find a better, you know, if I don't feel I need to compete with bigger minions, then I'll remove it for something else. But the fact is, you know, we want to be the ones with the biggest creatures on board, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Especially since we are also playing King Mukla, there is some synergy there. So we'll play King Mukla. They'll try and buff their large or large-ish creature with bananas, and then we'll just kill it with Big Game Hunter the following turn. Just a tiny interaction there, but Big Game Hunter, yeah, it just kills big things. What can I say? Excuse me. It's just really good against some of those big legendaries like Alexstrasza and stuff like that when they feel like they've put down a big enough threat. It's really good against like control decks. Harvest Golem is a slot that I'm probably going to see if I can switch out. The problem was I couldn't find a good 3-drop slot. I needed more 3-drops to play on curve. And Harvest Golem I actually really like because it just has a little bit of staying power after, you know, getting wrathed or getting killed. It lets us trade against face hunter minions multiple times. It's a sticky minion. That's pretty much all it is, and it's just a solid minion to play on curve. I looked around and I really couldn't find anything that I actually wanted to have at the 3-drop slot. There are some other considerations, like which ones were I considering? Earthen Ring Farseer, just because we take some. Our deck isn't extremely fast unless we have our ramp, but if we don't, naturally it's just not that fast. And you know, Earthen Ring Farseer is actually another consideration I've been mulling over. Not only does it help us if we do need to trade with our bigger minions, you know, to kill off something that out of necessity, we can heal it back up to full health to ready to beat down up ready to beat down again, plus progressing our board, and also just helps us alleviate some of that damage early on in the game that we're probably going to take, especially against aggressive decks. So it's just another thing to play on curve. And, you know, Emperor Cobra, I was considering one of those. It's a beast to count towards Druid of the Fang, but also it's just a really solid threat to, especially if against other decks that try and push a bigger minion out earlier, we're able to easily contend that with Emperor Cobra, and they have to use resources to get rid of it. It's just a very threatening card against a lot of different decks. So, Iron for Grizzly is just a 3/3 for 3 that has Taunt. That's also a beast. I was considering that one. Jungle Panther was also a major consideration. Again, it's a beast, but also the stealth is actually pretty important when we were trying to get final damage in. Late game, we can just play a Jungle Panther followed up with a Druid of the Fang, make a 7/7, and then just be ready to deal 11 damage next turn if they don't deal with what we have on board. The only problem is, you know, because it has 2 health, that's just a real bad amount of health. It gets hit by a ton of AoE. You know, lots of people play Oil Rogue, lots of people play ways to get around stealth in terms of dealing damage to your minions. So I might have to do some testing with it, we'll see. But generally I think I'll probably test with Emperor's Cobra and Earthen Ring Farseer first. But if there's any other really good 3-drops that you guys have suggestions for, that might be good. I might even just put in Shade of Naxxramas just because that's just a really good threat early on with our ramp, you know, especially if we have like Innervate. Turn 1 Shade of Naxxramas can easily be a huge threat later on in the game. We just let it grow and grow and grow. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for a good 3-drop in this type of deck, let me know. Let me know. King Mukla. This is you're probably wondering why this is in the list. Naturally, it's a beast, but playing it in my fatigue beatdown deck, I've noticed, you know, it's a pretty fun card to play, especially when we have like Wrath early on to control the board, or just trading up in one of my early minions. You know, King Mukla is really, really good to play on a blank board. Now, the 2 bananas can come back to bite you in the butt, but generally because it's a 3-mana 5/5, it's just really good at beating down early on and getting that damage in. Not only that, one really fun thing you can do, and that can just almost win you the game on the spot, depending on what answers they have in their starting hands and starting draws, is if you mulligan for Innervate plus King Mukla, you can go do a turn 1 King Mukla, and a turn 1 5/5 when they don't really have a board state to use those 2 bananas on. It gets in for at least 10-15 points of damage, unless you really just want to control the board with it, which is a possibility if you want to. But I really like King Mukla, and it's just another activator for Druid of the Fang. Mind Control Tech is just another card I really, really enjoyed because, again, as Druid, we're not really great at dealing with the board, and if our opponent is playing a really, really aggressive deck and we don't have Swipe, well, we're pretty much screwed. So Mind Control Tech helps us sort of get back in the game if we need to. And also, against, like, Dr. Boom, it activates it, and, you know, there's that. Swipe, Staple, Keeper of the Grove, 2 of them is just a staple. You might be thinking, you know, alongside 2 Iron Begals is a little bit of an overkill in terms of silence, but like I said, there's always something to silence. And, you know, Sledge Belcher is not the only taunt we're worried about. You know, Sunwalkers, Tyrion is another big one. You know, a lot of people playing Paladin nowadays, it seems like, so Tyrion is definitely something we want silences for. Nourishes is another one that is another choice in this list that's probably more on the unique side of things, I guess. You don't see many Druids playing Nourish, I find. Probably because it just takes up too many slots. I really liked it. Right now I only have 1 Ancient of the Lore built. Hopefully after we open up those boosters I'll be able to build another one. But generally I'll replace 1 Nourish with another Ancient of Lore, most likely. But I've actually really liked Nourish. It's a really solid mid-game play, I found, and especially since early on we're usually using Wraths, Wild Growths, Innervate, Swipes, you know, control the board, ramp, stuff like that. We need to fill up in the mid game, and, you know, waiting for Ancient of Lore to draw cards is a little bit too late a lot of the time, and drawing 3 cards is really good, especially if we can turn 3, you know, have sort of like a mini preparation into sprint. On turn 3 we can innervate and then nourish. So, and fill up our hand with threats. Because generally the idea with this deck is because we have a lot of 5 drops and just later end cards, we just want to sort of play threat after threat. So we want to fill our hand full of threats and then just play them one after another. Because they'll generally, depending on what deck we're going up against, they'll have answers too. And so we just want to put out threat after threat after threat. It also means that we're allowed to hit our opponent in the face with those minions, and while they're dealing with our threats with their minions, you know, trying to trade up and stuff like that, you know, we're just playing another threat down because we're trying to beat our opponent down. We're not trying to control the board or anything like that. Of course, that's just like in terms of how the deck's supposed to be played. In reality, yes, you do have to do board control at times, but generally you want to analyze when you can hit the face and when you have to trade. If we have the choice, we definitely want to hit the face. But you know, of course, controlling the board is important in Hearthstone, regardless of what deck you're playing. But Nourish is also really good if we feel like we need to get an early Scenarios out. Also, you know, we can gain 2 mana crystals, or if we feel we have a really good 2-card play the following turn and we need those 2 extra crystals, we can Nourish. But generally we're just going to be using it for the 3-card draw, because that's I love drawing cards. Drawing cards is amazing, and Nourish is just definitely up my alley. Druid of the Claw, 2 of them staples. Not only do they count towards Druid of the Fang's activation, but they're just amazing. It's just one of my favorite cards in Hearthstone. Druid of the Fang, the key card in the deck. Playing a 5-mana 7/7, hard to deal with, needs direct answers, something like Polymorph, Hex, or Big Game Hunter. If they don't have anything like that, you just start hitting them in the face. That's just how you do it. Hitting them for 7, you put them on the defensive really fast, but also you just close out games real fast. You know, by the time you play it, you would have probably hit them a few times with other things also. So it closes out games much faster. Faceless Manipulator. So the idea behind Faceless Manipulator is Druid is a class that there's so many cards where I wish I had 3 of. And like, for example, 3 Druid of the Claws, I would love to have 3 of them. 3 Druid of the Fangs, 3 Harvest Golems even. Or even like an extra King Mukla, extra Black Knight, extra Scenarios. Well, I guess that's not a really good example since they don't activate their battle cry. But essentially, the Faceless Manipulator is for the Druids. That's really the only thing. That's why it's the sort of equal cost as well. It's just an extra Druid. At times, we are going to be copying, like, I don't know. I have copied Scenarios at times, you know, because it is a 5/8 body and, you know, it's just still a big body. There has been times where I've copied King Mukla because it's just another 5/5 body where we need it. But you know, generally we just want to copy the Druids because it's either going to be a 4/6 with taunt, or a 4/4 with charge, or it'll just be a 7/7 for 5 mana. It's just gonna be another 7/7 for 5 mana, which is really sweet. And yeah, that's all it is. That's all you need to think about it is it's an extra Druid in the deck. Additionally, it does give us some utility in the sense that we can copy our opponent's minions, which is a pretty awesome thing to do if we need it. So it's sort of like a tech card, but generally we just want to play it following up Druid of the Fang or Druid of the Claw. The Black Knight is just really good right now. Same reasoning with like Sludge Belcher and Ironbeak Owl. It's just like this taunts to kill. It's just how it is. Now, because I added in an additional Ironbeak Owl, I might find another 6-drop, which is very likely. But as of now, I'm really liking what I have right here. Ancient Allure, I'm going to build another one, probably replace a Nourish with it. We'll see. I might even just take out Black Knight and replace it with an Ancient Allure and keep the 2 Nourishes. Who knows? I'll have to do some testing with that. But Ancient Allure is just another staple. Another consideration I might do instead of Black Knight is make an Ancient of War and put that in, because Ancient of War is also just a big threat on its own, and it's an additional taunt for us, which is something that we might need, because you'll notice that there really isn't too many taunts other than Druid of the Claw and Scenarios taunts. That's really all we have. So it might be smart to actually put in Ancient of War, which now that I think about it, I think I will actually do that. Alongside 2 Nourishes, we have enough card draw. And Cenarius, this is just another big reason I wanted to make a Druid deck, is I opened up a golden Cenarius in a booster, and it's just a super playable legendary. Love the card, love the card. But that's the deck, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this deck. Now, it is already 20 minutes into the video, so I'm going to gloss over this deck very, very quickly because this is sort of a joke deck. Sort of inspired by Day 9's terrible combo decks, you know. I love watching Day 9. He's one of my favorite personalities on the internet. He's just all about fun, and that's what I love about deck building as well, just trying to build fun decks. And you know, I like to try and make them work. I like to try and make them operate as best as they can be, but that's the same with Day 9. You find he puts a lot of thought into these decks, even if the general idea is sort of gimmicky. This deck is terrible. I'll say that right off the bat, but it does have the... If you want to just sort of confuse your opponent or just like sort of wow them with a big hit, even if you lose, well, this deck might be for you. I'll preface this by saying this deck is probably one of the most decks that's susceptible to silence. But you can do some really, really fun things with it. So the idea is, you know, one time please is the name of the deck, just because if I get sort of the combo off one time, I'll be happy. Generally, it's taking advantage of Divine Spirit and Inner Fire with really low-costed minions that have high amounts of health. For example, Doomsayer, Lightwell, Nurubar Weblord, Oasis Snapjaw. You know, those are the main targets. Even Northshire Cleric, you can make really, really big early on. So the sort of quote-unquote combo is you play Oasis Snapjaw turn 4. Turn 5, you do Divine Spirit plus Inner Fire, and then you can hit them for 28 damage. Now, that doesn't one-turn kill them, but of course, since you're doing some other damage throughout the game, it should be able to kill them on that turn. Not only that, we do include Mind Blasts just because it's a cheap way to close out games if you happen to hit them only once. Because generally with your mini combos in this deck, there's a lot of different targets that you can use with your Divine Spirit Inner Fire combo. You can close out games with Mind Blast real fast. And yeah, even late game, you can just do 4 mana for 10 damage. But yeah, we got some interesting choices in here. Northshire Cleric and Power Word Shield is just a way for us to draw into our sort of combo pieces, I guess. You might question Doomsayer. It's a way for us to slow down our opponent, but we can also play it and then silence it, and then use you know, Divine Spirit plus Inner Fire. So like even turn 2, we can play it turn 2. Turn 3, we can, you know, because we'll play it turn 2, and since they know that, you know, they'll read the text and they'll be like, oh, at the start of your turn, destroy all minions. It might make them, you know, unless they want to answer it on turn 2, which is very unlikely, they just won't play anything, which means you'll be able to turn 3, you can Divine Spirit plus Inner Fire, and then make a 14/14 with the silence as well. And, you know, of course you have to have all those cards in hand, but, you know, it is a possibility, and then you can, you know, hit them in the face, and yeah, having a 14/14 on turn 3 is pretty sweet, I have to say. Especially since you hit them that turn for 14 damage. So as you can see, it's a very gimmicky deck, but again, that's why it's called One Time Please, because, you know, if you ever get that kind of turn one time, I think it'd be extremely fun, and I would be happy even if you lost that game afterwards. Ancient Watcher is just another card activator that works with silence, but, you know, it can also get big as well. Lightwell is another turn 2 that can get big. You know, on turn 3, it can become a 10/10. Or is it? Yeah, 10/10. Let's see what else. Nurubar Weblord is a way for us, since we don't have a lot of battle cries, it's a way for us to slow down our opponent. And again, it also is just another minion that has a lot of health that can become, you know, an 8/8 on turn 3. You know, as you can see, so there's a pattern here. Turn 3 is where we want to just make one of our 2-drops really, really big, and then just start hitting our opponent in the face. Organized Soul Priest is another way we can just close out games. We can just play it and then start using our hero power, and then until they deal with it. Yeah, that's one option. And Oasis Snapshot is just another sort of mid-game big threat. I just wanted to fill my deck with a bunch of these. And Holy Nova, just a little bit of board clear, a little bit of board control. Faceless Manipulator is a way for us to copy one of our big creatures once we've built it up. And also is, oh yeah, one thing to say is this deck is also very susceptible to Big Game Hunter. I'll say that. And we can also copy other people's minions if we need to, like a taunt or something like that. Spectral Knight is a mid-game card that we can play that's not able to get targeted by hero powers and spells, which is really good, so it can't be polymorphed or something like that. And then that also allows us to, you know, just play double Divine Spirit and Inner Fire and, you know, make a 24/24 and hit them for 24 damage. So that's the deck. It's just a really, really gimmicky, fun deck to play. Whoopsie, I'm really sorry about that. My water bottle hit the mic stand. I just wanted to go over and make a really fun deck. Haven't really got the combo off. I did make a 10-10 light well on turn 3, but it sadly got answered with silence quickly after. But you know, it was still fun it was still really fun to do, and you know, the fact that I got it off was just awesome. But anyways, let's open some packs. This is already almost a 30-minute video. Hopefully you guys enjoy these. Hopefully you guys enjoy these sort of more thorough talks I have. I know I talk a lot about my decks and stuff like that, but I like to sort of give the reasonings for like every single card almost. You know, I like to be thorough. I know not everyone's like that, but to those who are, hopefully you appreciate these longer talks. And you know, because I'm talking very in depth about, you know, and you know what topic I'm talking about, you can always just shut off the video and just listen to it. You can do something else and you don't have to watch it. So I bought 7 Goblin versus Gnomes packs, and I also, because there's still some classic cards I want to have in my deck, I bought some classic packs as well. So we'll open the classic ones first. Not really looking for anything too specific, just mostly legendaries. Can't remember if there's some epics that I'm looking for. I think there's a few in, like, Druid epics. Definitely wouldn't mind having. Hey, we got a golden. Not really rare, but that's alright. Golden cards are always fine. Ancient Mage. So far we're doing really terrible. But that's alright. If anything, it'll give us dust to make Ancient of War, which I probably will get. Double rare. You're gonna be dusting a lot of these cards. Now I don't have. Ooh, there we go. Spellbender. Gross. Well, I do sort of want to make a secret mage deck at some point, but so that's not terrible. So I actually haven't bought Goblin versus Gnomes packs before, and I don't think I've crafted many Goblins versus Gnomes packs. So a lot of these cards, pretty much all of them, should be relatively new. Awesome. Yeah, we got an anodized Robo Cup. I needed another one of those. Jeeves, good old Jeeves. Egg double rare. Hunter, give your mechs +2 attack. Nice. Mech Hunter might be fun to make. So we got 1 epic so far. And second epic, Hobgoblin. That's awesome, actually. And I also got a second Little Exorcist. That's good too, because I needed a second one. Hobgoblin is actually a card I want to try to make a deck around. It's gonna be real gimmicky, but that's definitely a deck builders types card. And there's another one. Feign Death is another awesome card that I wanted to play around. I wanted to make a Feign Hunter deck, with like Baron Rivendell and stuff like that. So those are 2 really good packs. Shielded Minibot's a good card. Last pack. Alright, so that pack was terrible. Oh, we got our Mech Warpers though. So overall not bad. I'm actually happy with what we got at the end there. I was sort of getting worried that we weren't going to get too many things. Picked up a second anodized Robo Cub. Was looking for one of those. Feign Death, need those. Need a second one now, but hey, we got one of them. And we got some cool Goblin versus Gnomes cards. And as you can see, I don't have any Goblin versus Gnomes cards really. So it was nice that we opened some. But yeah, overall, so sort of good. Not great, but not terrible either. probably open some more packs in the future now that I have a job. So hopefully you guys enjoy pack openings. Got a bunch of neutral cards. So that is a boost pack opening, and those are the cards that I got from them, as well as the decks that I made. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the deck techs, you guys, and hopefully you, you know, thought the decks were relatively interesting. I know the priest one's probably just groan at and shake your head, but at least, you know, I know it's terrible. It's just gonna be fun to see, hopefully try and get it to work. But the druid deck is the main concern. If you guys have any good suggestions for that druid deck, my Druid of the Fang deck, you can definitely leave some comments below, and I'll definitely get back to you on that. Check them out. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Kiratze at the bottom right. You can see there, as well as follow my blog at mygamermind.wordpress.com, in which this video will be hosted on as well. But thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you guys later. And I also will be back with my Fatigue Mill beatdown deck, and I'm going to be trying to make a Mill Druid deck in the future, so be on the lookout for that. So until then, talk to you guys later.